Hello, friends, and welcome to the Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord. In this podcast, we introduce you to powerful women who are changing the game in and outside of their field of play. These are women's stories, women who happen to be doing things that many of us can only dream of, but the lessons and inspiration they share is universal. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Powerful Podcast. If you have not heard of Skimo, aka ski mountaineering, don't worry, you're not alone, but you need to, because it's a brand new sport for the upcoming 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan-Cortina. My name is AJ McCord, and in this episode, we are interviewing Anna Gibson. She made history and headlines in December when she locked in a spot for both Team USA and herself in ski mountaineering. The craziest part about all of this, it was her very first World Cup event in ski mountaineering. The story of how she went from having never competed in the sport a year ago to becoming an Olympian within 12 months is a story of answering the question of what if with why not. And I hope it leaves you feeling challenged in the same way that it has left me challenged, of asking myself, why not take that chance? Why not take that risk, chase that dream? Because what if it all works out? So this is the podcast for you if you're wondering, what if it all works out? Here's Anna Gibson. We are joined now by Anna Gibson. She is a multi-sport athlete, but for this powerful podcast, we are talking to her about the one that she picked up the most recently and the one she happened to make the Olympic team in. Welcome, Anna Gibson, your representative for the 2026 Winter Olympics in ski mountaineering. Anna, can you believe I just said that?
Still sounds pretty crazy. It's an introduction that I'm still getting used to, but thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You burst onto the scene quite literally in Skimo in early December, and it was a do or die situation for Team USA because it was down to like one Olympic spot, USA, Canada, which like rivalry is all this time. How fun is that? But you're coming into your very first Olympic qualifying event in Skimo, and like you have the weight of the country on your shoulders. What were your nerves like that day in Solitude, Utah?
It's funny. I think this is like the question that I've been getting the most. And to be honest, I feel like there wasn't that much pressure, which is probably a crazy thing to say, but I feel like there was just so much support, and it felt more like people just rallying behind my relay partner, Cam, and I, than it felt like pressure, if that makes any sense. I think there were just a lot of people who have put a lot of energy into giving us the opportunity to compete for the Olympic spot, even to like have that World Cup race happening on US soil in Utah. There's just so many people out that were there to support us. And so it didn't feel like pressure, because if we failed at the end of the day, like wouldn't go to the Olympics, but we would continue to compete and get to try again in 4 years. And it really wouldn't have been the end of the world. And then if we did make it, it was like the greatest accomplishment, not just for Cam and I, but also for all of these people who have put so much time and energy into making that whole dream happen.
It was so cool to watch it because it really was, I got introduced to Skimo last year. We had Gwen Rudy on the Powerful Podcast, and she explained this brand new sport, ski mountaineering, which is what Skimo is short for. So for those who don't know about this brand new sport that you're going to be competing in for Team USA, can you break down in like the simplest terms, what is ski mountaineering?
So ski mountaineering is basically a version of backcountry skiing that's fast, and it happens. The Olympic disciplines are an individual sprint and then a mixed relay sprint, which is a team of one man and one woman. And that's what we qualified to race. It's actually pretty cool because all the athletes that qualify to race the mixed relay at the Olympics also get to race the individual sprint. So Cam and I will be competing together and separately. But yeah, it's basically like fast backcountry skiing, but you're in a circuit course that's on piste. And so it's all groomed. It's typically pretty firm snow. And there's an element of like getting to skin uphill, some boot packing with your skis on a backpack, and then also skiing down through gates like an alpine race.
So we're going to touch on a lot of things there because it's so interesting that it was your first time as at a World Cup for ski mountaineering, but your background is like It's like you were training for this race your entire life because you started ski racing as a kiddo and then you moved into track and field where you did a lot of middle distance running, even made the semifinals at the US Olympic team trials last year, no big deal. And then you get called and say, hey, we want you to come to this Skimo training camp. Like, I guess describe how your background really made it so that you became an instant contender in this sport that you've never tried.
I mean, I think that if you sort of zoom out and you were to try to make a list of the things that would make someone good at Skimo who had never done it in a competitive sense before, you basically would describe my athletic background. Like, you would describe somebody who has experience backcountry skiing and is familiar with the gear. You would describe somebody who like has an uphill engine, which is like basically my full-time job as a trail runner. I'm training for that every single day to like boost my VO2 max and be able to just like tolerate going lactic running uphill, which you're essentially doing on skis in the Skimo race. And then also somebody who has a background in downhill ski racing because that's a huge part of the event, and like can give you a pretty big leg up if you have experience in that department. And those are all things that describe me. And so I think that USA Skimo and Cam Smith, my partner, like I think that they all had thought through all those things and they were thinking who can we bring into the fold that brings these things to the table? And then here I am.
So how did they find you? Because it is, you mentioned your trail running, which I apologize for forgetting because it's also a very impressive part of who you are as a professional athlete. This girl runs up mountains for fun and like very quickly with a smile on her face. And I've seen multiple where you're in like a hot pink bib and you're just thriving at the top of your life. So how did they find you? What was the process that led to you getting that starting spot at the World Cup?
So Cam and I met a couple years ago. I think we've known each other for 4 or 5 years now. We were actually both at a trail race up in Montana at the Rut, and I had a couple of people just in the running industry and other friends tell me, okay, keep your eyes out for Cam. He's awesome. You'll know him when you see him. Like he's got red curly hair and is like such a beast. And so I met him at the Rut, and then from that point forward, like we've overlapped at tons of events, mostly in the trail running space. We were on the Trail Worlds team together this year in September, like competing in similar events. And so I've just gotten to know him a lot over the last couple of years. And so, yeah, he was basically just a friend of mine, like approaching me and asking me about Skimo, which we've talked about on and off over the last couple of years, not in terms of the Olympics, but just in terms of the sport in general, because he's been a phenom in trail and in Skimo for years.
So what was your reaction when that conversation changed from like, hey, this is kind of a cool sport that I do to, hey, we have a chance as the Americans to get a spot in the sport's Olympic debut. You want to give it a try?
I mean, at first I was like, okay, Cam, that's fun. Thanks for talking to me about it. But this year is crazy. I have so many running things planned. I've got lots of big goals that I'm looking forward to. And this conversation happened right after qualifying to race 2 events at the Trail World Championships, like I was just mentioning. And so I was thinking, wow, like I have a really big year ahead because this conversation is happening at the end of June. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to be in good shape to race at the end of September. And then on top of that, now like add to the picture this whole Skimo idea that like, oh, wait, your season isn't going to end in September. You're going to be like maybe racing through February. Like that's insane. And so my initial reaction was like, I don't know that that makes the most sense for me in like a long-term perspective, to try and do that. And also like, what if it doesn't happen? What if it doesn't work out? What if I try it and I've put a lot of time and effort and energy into making it work with my life and my season and schedule. And then like, we don't make the Olympics or I don't enjoy it or something like that. So that was my initial thought. And then as I had time to kind of sit with it over like the week after the conversation, I like mentioned it to my parents and I mentioned it to my sister and I mentioned it to my coach and a couple of close friends. And then everyone was like, why would you not do that? Why would you not just try? And they could tell how excited I was about it and just like the prospect. And so ultimately, I obviously decided to go for it. And I think it was like just a little 1 week period where I was like trying to figure out what was best for me overall as a person and long term. And then I like totally came to my senses and I was like, this is 100% what I should be doing. Like I've always known that at some point I would race Skimo. I just didn't know that it would be now, and I didn't know that it would be for the Olympics.
Yeah, no big deal. So I want to go back to that what if, because I feel like that question, right? It's something that so many of us get faced with at different times of our life. What if I leave this job and look for the next? What if I move on from this career? What if I decide to start a family? What if, what if, what if? There's like these juncture points in our life where that question becomes the only one, right? What if I dreamed of a different reality for myself? And you went with the option of, what if I try? The worst thing that happens is I'm kind of in the same spot as like you went in one direction with that what if, but it's such a brave direction to take. What in your personality helped you be brave enough to answer that what if with why not?
I love that question. I mean, I think it's a skill that I've been honing actually over the last couple of years. And I think the what if could be answered with, I guess the what if question could be framed in a way that you're worried about, what if I fail? What if this doesn't go well? What if this is a bad idea? But it also, like you were saying, it could be, what if I succeed? Like, what if we make the Olympics? What if this dream comes true? And I think I've been in a place of like experimentation almost in the last couple of years where I know who I am and I know what my skills are, but I'm still exploring where they can take me and what they can do. And so there have been multiple occasions, like you mentioned, the Olympic trials. The story with that one was that I decided to also race the Broken Arrow vertical kilometer 6 days before the Olympic trials. And I just said, like, yeah, what if I fail? What if racing the Broken Arrow VK jeopardizes my Olympic trials experience? And I could have thought about it that way, but instead I framed it as, what if I succeed in doing both of these things and I show other athletes that like you don't have to choose and you don't have to specialize. Like the outcome of that is so worth the risk of failing to me, because like the point of doing all of this is to like open up doors for yourself and for other people. And so I think the same thing happened with the Skimo experience, where I just was like, yeah, I could fail, but if I do, it's like really doesn't affect anybody else other than me, and I can get over that. Whereas if I succeed, right, this says like, wow, look what we can do. Like, look what you can do if you just try something and like you just put it all out there and you throw everything at one goal for like a small period of time and you just see where it takes you. And I feel like time and time again, I've just been shown that like taking that path and looking at the what ifs from like the positive perspective can be like so magical and so worth it.
The fear of failure is something that I think everybody has, right? But when you break down like why we're afraid of failure, to me, when I start looking at it that way of like, wait, what am I actually afraid of, right? If I fail at this, like you said, if you failed at this Skimo thing, you didn't qualify for the Olympics, guess what? Like Team USA didn't have a spot to begin with. Like very few people knew what Skimo was. So like it wasn't like this, it was like when you actually broke down what you were afraid of in failing, it wasn't that big. And it took it from like, oh my gosh, what if I fail, to like, oh, manageable, manageable, manageable. And that's such a beautiful way of looking at fear, is like taking it apart and piecing it up and saying, well, wait a minute, I've handled that before. I could overcome that if that happens. Like I think that is a really beautiful way of approaching that what if.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also like, what if I fail? Okay, you fail this time and then you get to try again. Like it's really just, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about sports, is that there's always another opportunity, even with the Olympics, especially as a young athlete. Like it just doesn't feel like it's that stressful or that much pressure, because it's like, well, it's only my first try. So like there's always another opportunity to go after it again or to do it differently, and to try and find your way, and it will just work out. And so I think it's just worth taking the chances.
Absolutely. And we are so glad that you took the chance, because now you've gone from your season ending in September to maybe it was ending in December. And now, girl, you're here through at least February. So how has your life changed in the last month or so as this reality has set in that you're going to the Olympics?
I mean, I'm trying to not let it change too much, to be honest. I think like that's sort of a trap that a lot of people fall into with like very exciting big races, whether that's just like a national championship or the Olympics or what have you, or just like an A race. I think people get really wrapped up in thinking about how they can make everything be perfect and how they can, really dial in and all of these things. And I'm just going to approach the Olympics the exact same way as I approach everything else, which is just like from a place of trying to gain experience, go have a good time. Ultimately, that's how I perform my best. And so I'm trying to not change a lot. I'm just enjoying my winter of training. Basically, yeah, trying to be like flexible and yeah, just enjoy like winter in the Tetons because it's one of the most special times of year here.
It's magical in the Tetons. I really think no matter when you go, but I can imagine right now is just absolutely stunning. So I feel like Skimo has the potential in the Winter Olympic world to sort of be like curling, where it becomes like this cult classic very quickly. And everybody's like, wait a minute, Skimo, this is like, we need to know about this sport. So I want to have a moment here to break down this sport in its entirety, because you mentioned how much fun, I'm using air quotes for those of you listening to this podcast, not watching us on YouTube, training is. I have done Skimo one time in Colorado. Fun is not the word that I would use to describe what it is like trying to haul uphill on a pair of skis with skins on the bottom. I could not carry a conversation. I was huffing and puffing, and I'm not the most athletic, but I'm not the least. And I was like, this sport is so freaking hard. Why is this fun for you? Why is this kind of training something that you really enjoy?
Great question. I mean, I don't know. I do think it's a combination of things that I just really love because it has this uphill fitness element, which to me feels good. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion. But I think that's like one of my favorite feelings of all time is just when you feel so strong going uphill, whether that's on skis or running, or honestly, even on a bike. I think I just love that feeling. And then you get to the top and you have to rip your skins off, go through this crazy transition. There's this whole element of skills and just like dexterity involved. And I think that's really fun, like mentally to have a piece of a sport that you have to like perfect and just like work on. Like you can literally do it at your house in your living room, or in your yard on a yoga mat. And then you get to ski downhill, which is also so incredibly fun and something that I've loved my entire life. And so it's just like a really fun combination of things, but it is so hard. And I genuinely think that it is harder than trail running. Like you cross the finish line and you actually cannot stand up anymore because your whole body is just done.
I can imagine. I have seen some of those Skimo racers where it's like the finish line is that is it. That is the body has given out. You knew exactly what you needed to get there. And then you spent every last iota of energy in order to achieve that. So let's talk about this transition, because this is a video that has gone viral on TikTok a few times of like the Skimo transition. So break down for us what it is and how you get good at it, and then why it makes such a difference in a Skimo race, because it's so different than like a baton handoff, right? Like in track and field, there's so much to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there is a lot to it, and I don't want to like go into totally all of the minutia because it's all like very technical and there's lots of style elements. Like if you watch a Skimo race, you'll see it happening, and you'll see that like different people have different techniques and strategies, which is also really fun. Basically, there are 4 different transitions because in this mixed relay race, you're going from ascending to descending. You're also going from descending to ascending. You're going from skinning uphill to putting your skis on a backpack and running. And then you're going back from running into skinning. And so there's like 4 different transitions that you have to perfect. Putting your skins on, taking them off, putting your skis on your backpack and taking them off of your backpack. And so, yeah, a huge part of Skimo is just figuring out how to do all of those things quickly, because like if you're going to be going from ascending to descending, you get up to the top in this like transition zone, which is flagged off. It's just like a small rectangle that everyone skis into. and you put your poles down, and then you're going to grab, like you flip the clips on your boots. So your boots go from like being bendy in walk mode to being stiff like an alpine ski race boot. You're going to like flip a little clip on your bindings so that your boots can go into your bindings and your heels get locked down. And then you grab the front of your skins, which they're like attached to your skis with a little bungee, and you jump, and like with one fell swoop, you like pull your arms back and you rip both skins off. And then you like tangle the skins into a little wad and you stuff them into a kangaroo pouch on the front of your race suit. Um, and so that's the one that generally goes viral because it like is this very absurd feat that actually takes a lot of like athleticism, because when you're panting, you get to the top of this hill, you're working really hard and like your heart rate is super high. And so to like do all of that in, some of the men are doing it in like 3 point something seconds, and the women are generally like 5 or 6. But it's super fast. And so like to do all of that in like one fell swoop and then just like go on your way and race down through gates is like pretty silly to watch. And so that's generally the one that goes viral.
And so when you say you have backcountry experience, so skinning is something that you had a lot of experience with, which skinning, for those who are new to the mountain sports scene, skins are basically these like stickies that you put on the bottom of your skis. One side adheres to the ski, but then the other side has like what feels almost like fur to me. It like feels like fuzzy type stuff. And it gives you traction going uphill, right? Because like obviously skis are meant to go downhill typically. And so this helps you have the same motion and like walking uphill. So you have experienced skinning, but it's very different to just, casually take your skins off at the top of a hill, enjoy the view, maybe have a coffee, maybe have a drink, whatever. And then be like, okay, now with friends, we're going to ski back down. What was the first time for you trying to do this transition quickly like?
Yeah, it's pretty silly. I mean, there's like a lot of bloopers, and there still are. Like, I think things went pretty well for me in the World Cup race at Solitude with the Olympic qualifier, but like I have endless videos on my phone of things that I've taken of myself practicing and like sending them to our team coach. And they're just like hilarious, like me just like fully failing, like my binding like coming off my foot, like me just completely falling on the ground, skins going flying somewhere. And so it's like just a constant process of like trying to refine doing it, because that double skin rip that I was just explaining is not something that you do in backcountry skiing. Like generally, like you were saying, you take one skin off at a time, you like fold it very carefully so it's all perfect, put it back in your backpack for next time. And so that was kind of a new element for me. But I do think that like coming into Skimo with experience, moving in the backcountry and, being familiar with skins and like how sticky they are and how to put your toe in a binding, like all of that stuff is like very relevant. And so just the general familiarity with like the type of gear, even though it's much lighter and skinnier and shorter for Skimo, was like very helpful for me.
What was the first time like that you actually did the double rip, like the way that you wanted to? Maybe not as fast as you wanted to, but like in one fell swoop, both skins are off, they're stuffed in the pouch. Like, what was your reaction?
I think I don't remember like exactly the very first time, but I think a very memorable time for me was in August. I went to a training camp with the US Skimo team that was held at Brighton, and we were like staying in this Airbnb that had this big, beautiful deck on the front of the building. And so we all set up our yoga mats and we were in our race suits, which is just so absurd. It's August, so it's like hot. You're just like sweating so much because you're wearing like a full ski race suit. And we were just practicing our transitions with the coaches there, like taking videos, timing us. And so there's kind of this added element of like a little bit of pressure and stress that I hadn't had. And I was just learning all of this. And I show up to a team full of people who are so dialed and so good at these transitions. And I just remember laughing so hard on this deck, just trying to like fumble my way through it and figure it out. And there was one that I did the double skin rip and I nailed it. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, she can do it. That's crazy. And it was just this moment of like, wow, like my hard work is paying off and it is working. And I have thoroughly embarrassed myself, but we're getting there.
I love that. That's so fun. It really is one of the most niche, impressive things about ski mountaineering. Like everything about ski mountaineering is very impressive. The cardio that it takes to be able to go uphill, the speed with which y'all go downhill. But this transition is one of those things that it is ripe for failure. But then when you get it right, you're like, wow, this is beautiful. So I cannot wait to watch you do that in Milan-Cortina. Walk me through just, I guess, you've been working towards things your entire life, and it feels like there were so many dreams, so many paths that you could take. And you mentioned after college in an interview saying that you were so excited to not have to choose between trail and track. And now you're expanding that repertoire even more to going back to 6-year-old Anna, who was a ski racer and wanted to make it to the Olympics then. How does it feel to keep expanding your box of what is possible for you?
I think it feels really liberating because for a long time, I thought that I was going to have to choose. I think that that's just like the direction that high school pushes you. That's the direction that college athletics pushes you. Like the systems are just built for choosing a sport and going all in on that one thing. And so I got wrapped up in that for a lot of years and always felt like I was having to like push against that idea of specificity in order to like retain all of these things that I love to do and continue to like be the best version of myself athletically. And so coming out of college, I didn't really know whether as a professional you could do all of these different things or if I was going to have to choose in order to succeed. And I feel like I did choose in some way. Like I chose that I wanted to pursue running. And I'm really fortunate that Brooks stepped into the picture and was excited about supporting me in any type of running that I wanted. And I thought that that was like my dream, that that was everything I needed. And it definitely is, but I think I didn't realize like at that point, even this was now, I think this is like 3 years ago. I didn't even realize at that point that that flexibility would also allow me to race my bike and also allow me to do Skimo. And I'm so glad that it did. Like, I think I've kind of had to like find my way through it, figure out how to put things together, you know, like find a team of people that can like support me in all of these different things. And I'm still working on that. Obviously, it's like a constant process of just trying to figure out how to make it work. But I think the experience of doing it and like having more success in each of those sports than I think I would if I was doing them individually is like the most satisfying thing ever. It's like I just think I knew that this was the model I needed. It's just taken me a long time to get there.
And it's a model that is changing the way athletes who come after you view what is possible, which is one of the coolest things to believe. I think we talk about it all the time with women's sports in particular, but especially for me with the coverage of the Olympic and action sports, it is so critical to, if you see her, you can be her. And right now, someone is seeing you, and then they will be able to be whatever version of that they are. And I just think that is so incredibly awesome. So thank you for never believing that you had to choose one and instead answering the question of what if with why not? Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I hope that that's what I'm contributing. I think that's like kind of become my mission as an athlete, like outside of competing and performing myself. Like I just want people to see that you can do it your way, whatever that looks like. And I think, I mean, a huge part of like why I've seen this door open for myself is because of athletes that I look up to and people that I follow, like in completely different spaces, like doing their own version of that. And they made me see that it was possible and that I should try. And so I think, yeah, if I'm giving that back to anybody, I think that's considered a win for me.
Well, you've already won then, because it's certainly what you are proving every single time you show up as your authentic self. So we're so excited to get a chance to watch you in Milan-Cortina, to root you and Team USA on in ski mountaineering's Olympic debut. Before we let you go, Anna, this is the Powerful Podcast. And of course, we're all about highlighting powerful women such as yourself who are just changing the way that we view the world. So I want to know, what does powerful mean to you?
I think powerful is figuring out the best version of yourself and chasing that, even if it's completely different from what other people expect of you or different from what you're seeing everyone else doing.
I love that. Well, good luck in Italy. We can't wait to root you on, and it's going to be fun. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great chatting with you.
Season 4 of the Powerful Podcast is getting you ready for the Winter Games in Milan-Cortina. So look for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy this and don't want to miss an episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button.